little bit about Claude Home first, but you've sourced vintage furniture for a long time and now you're actually making custom furniture. So I'm wondering how you even got to this place.
So I started Claude Home kind of as like a hobby when I was, I think like 22 or 23. I was working in fashion at under the editor of ID magazine, and I had a bit of a mental breakdown, and I was collecting like a bunch of coasters and ashtrays, and my boyfriend at the time was like, just get this out of the house. And he's like, start one of those like stupid Instagram accounts that like everyone's doing with clothing. And I was like, okay. Over time, I just slowly built it and grew a following, and also like learned a lot about furniture. I knew nothing about it. I didn't know like one designer besides Crate & Barrel and IKEA. But just like scrolling eBay and Instagram and Pinterest and reading a lot of books, I just educated myself on like the importance of designers and where a lot of references are origin from, and kind of how furniture has become with like new builds, like where all the references are coming from.
How would you categorize like your aesthetic?
That's a good question that I don't know, because every day it changes and everyone always asks me that, but I'm like, I would categorize it as I want to create the row clothing,
Yes.
but furniture.
Yes.
I'm trying again to get like the price point down, but like it just, everything is perfect and it's tailored, and it's, like a dining chair is simple, but it's beautiful, and it's like the row, like their white t-shirts are really amazing, and like you can spot them from like a mile away. So I would categorize myself as like the Olsen twins.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it. You said you kind of had a mental breakdown. So
Yes.
Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
I started working, I dropped out of high school when I was 18 and moved to New York, and didn't really have like a clue of what I wanted to do, but I was very driven and knew I wanted to work in fashion and I wanted to do styling, but I didn't know like the name of that job. So I got an internship, and I started when I was like 18 or 19. It was a really tough internship, and it was non-paid. I was able to kind of climb the ladder really quickly and got like an amazing like assistant job, and was kind of titled like the super intern. And I worked so hard, and my dream was to work for this one stylist who's amazing and massive. And I got the job working with him at 21. And nobody's really had that job that was like in their 20s. I've always had the mentality that like I can do it, and even if it's gonna kill me, then like we can do it and get it done. But I just like drove myself into a grave, and was working from like 7 a.m. to like 4 a.m. consistently, and traveling a lot, not sleeping, just like a bad place, and was drinking and partying and not sleeping. And yeah, it just drove me to like literally like my mom saw me and she's like, you have to quit your job and move home. And so went home for a little bit, and that's when I decided to start Claude.
In the past year, I would say with Claude Home, you've been more forward facing. So I'm wondering, what was the thought process behind that? And also like, do you feel comfortable in that position?
I hate it.
Okay.
I don't feel comfortable, but the thought process was, it kind of stems from a few different things. So like during the protest with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, I kind of realized that a lot of the reason that I was hiding my face behind Claude was, one, because I was really young and still am, but I was kind of embarrassed that I was very young running this company, and then also because I was Black. And I always had this feeling that if people knew I was Black, they weren't going to like appreciate my taste, or they just weren't gonna really like me. And so like it was always something that I kind of have hidden my entire life. And then like one day, like during the protest, I realized, I was like, this is why I haven't posted my face for like the most part. And I made a post on Instagram kind of just explaining this to people, and like it's a really weird thought process that anybody's having. Like, I'm not gonna post my photo on Instagram because people aren't gonna wanna buy a couch because I'm Black. And I learned that a lot of companies and a lot of business owners experience like the same issue, and they felt the same way. So I do it kind of, it was like a really scary thing. Like the first time I posted a photo, I was really freaked out, but got like a lot of good feedback. Everyone was so nice, and like so many people were like, I cannot believe like you would ever think that. And I'm like, that's just kind of how life is.
How do you feel now?
It is still like scary, but I'm not as scared. I think during the protests and all of that, people's mentality really did change, and people really did educate themselves, and I've seen like a massive difference. I do feel a lot with companies, like when I'm doing like sponsored posts or ads or whatever, that I'm kind of like the token Black girl. I think Danielle Prescott made a book.
I just read it.
Yeah,
it's an
literally.
amazing book.
I haven't read it. I haven't even read what it's about, but the title, I'm like, I know exactly like what this is about. So I just have kind of always felt that way, which is fine. But I've also like recognized and been told by many people I'm like the whitest Black girl you'll ever meet. So like sometimes when brands, I'm like the only Black one like out of the 8 other like influencers or whatever that have been chosen for a campaign, I'm like, it's because I'm a very white passing Black person and I fit their image more than somebody with like really, you know, like naturally curly hair or darker skin does. So I find it kind of annoying, and I don't know, it's something that bothers me and it's something like I'm aware of.
Well, I'm glad that you are showing your face more, and especially following your personal account, I actually think you're very funny. So. And then speaking of being more forward facing as well, and if you're comfortable sharing more, you know, when we first met, you talked about having an eating disorder. And so I'm wondering, especially with taking photos, or how does that impact your mental health and sort of what you've gone through?
Yeah, so me and food have like a very strange relationship. I mean, it goes back to when I was like 7 years old. My mom would like challenge me to go on like 3-day fasts of just water, and I was always given calorie counting books and told to like not lose weight but be healthy. But healthy to her was like starving yourself and exercising like a couple hours a day. And so I've always had that kind of mentality ingrained in my brain that food is gross, and like watching people eat is gross, and people watching me eat is gross. And I'm like very self-conscious on like posting food on Instagram. And if I go on a date with a guy, I don't usually eat, and I know it makes them uncomfortable because it's like a weird thing to do, but I'm like, the anxiety of somebody, like especially a guy watching me eat, is just unbearable. And a lot of my eating disorder was stemmed from like racial things growing up. I went to a very like white school in San Diego, a Christian religious school, and I was again like kind of the token Black girl at the school. And so it was very much, how can I make myself as white as possible? And it's like, okay, so like, you know, there's a stigma that Black people have like a big ass or butt, sorry, and then like hips and curves and whatever. And I'm like, okay, I just need to like make sure I don't have any of that. Like, what can I do? So it's just always been starving yourself and all these weird diet tricks I would do. And then when my dad passed, or my stepdad passed when I was 14, my mom kind of like just went missing mentally. Like, she would not speak to me. She was so depressed, and I just like wanted attention so badly from her. And I'm like, nothing. I would be like, I'm depressed, I need help, and she wouldn't acknowledge me. And she'd be, her always thing was, there's kids in Africa that are starving. And she's like, you have nothing to be sad about. So again, I was like, I just need to get as sick as I can. And then finally, like, maybe she'll notice. And that put me in like a really dark place of like, I was already extremely depressed, I wasn't eating, and my body was just like kind of melting away, and like I had heart issues and stuff like that. So I finally got her attention, but it's still been like a battle between us on, she's like, just eat, like, you wasted my money, like, just fix it. Like, it's your fault you have anxiety, it's your fault you're depressed. And so we've had like a weird, hard relationship that way.
Are you still sort of in that space? Are you, what way have you gone? Like, how have you helped yourself? Or do you feel as if like there's been improvement?
I think it's always going to be a struggle. Like, I went to a few eating disorder like clinics and hospitals and residential places. And if you don't want to get better, you're not going to get better. It's the same thing with an alcoholic or a drug addict. Like, you have to really want it. And the only thing, I still struggle to this day. I don't like eating in front of people. I'm like, food just really freaks me out. And my weight like fluctuates a lot depending the day or month or whatever. But the only thing that has ever helped my brain is to say that your body wants to be at a certain weight. So like, I can lose 15 pounds, but you can't maintain that. It's like not possible. And also being an adult, it's like, okay, I have to like work, and you can't work when you're like starving. And I'm like, you have to pay bills. And I'm like, do I really want this hospital bill if I get like really sick, and like all this stuff. So it's just kind of like a realization of like, you literally just can't, it's not possible to live this way. But I still struggle. I still have my moments, but it's more of like, I would call it habit than like me really like trying to like lose weight and nitpicking my body. It's just my way of eating. It's just kind of what it's been its whole life.
I can relate in the way that like I have my own sort of eating situation and sort of like the way food impacts me and sort of the shame that I feel from it. So while I don't have the same experience as you, I can relate in the sense that like it's not, maybe I'm better now and I'm really aware of it, but like it's really hard for that thing to just like disappear.
Yeah, it's like I would love to, like, before I go on a date, I always like scan the menu and I like know exactly what I'm gonna order. And
I do that too.
And I'm like, my friends don't do that. I'm like, what? And like this is like 4 days like in advance. I'm planning what I'm gonna eat and like all this stuff. And I'm like, I would love for that to go away. I just don't think that will. And it's just kind of like, it's your life and you just have to like learn to deal with it in a sense. I don't know if it's the best thinking method, but it's just some things you just have and you just have to like figure out how to manage them and be the healthiest version that you can be. Because once this is in your brain, when people are like, I'm recovered, I'm like, but what does recovery mean?
Yeah.
Like, I've recovered is like, okay, I'm at a healthy weight now, but mentally, like, I don't think you ever recover.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think you ever fully recover, and I'm working with an eating disorder therapist right now, and so I almost feel as if I've like gotten worse in some ways because of like the awareness that I have. But yeah, I think that you can, she keeps talking about like my set point weight, that like this is where my body wants to be, and of course like for me that's like not good enough for me. But yeah, I don't know if that will ever go away.
Yeah, I don't think it does. I've like, my friends are like, I'm 3 years recovered. I'm like, so did you just wake up one day when you graduated like the residential program and like you were fixed? I'm like, tell me more. What
would you tell young Maggie in regards to your mental health?
A lot. a lot. It doesn't fully ever get better, but you do have to work at it. Don't drink because that really makes you crazy. I think actually I listened to something the other day. It was whenever you're like in a moment where you're like, this is like the worst anxiety I ever had, like this is like the end of my life. You probably had 10 of those moments in the last 3 months and you got over them and you were fine later in the day or the next day or whatever it is. So I'd probably just tell myself like, in a way, like this too shall pass. Like it's gonna be okay.